is a major issue in our northeast and eastern countries. And mainly, rice is though staple food and cultivated for centuries, it has some issues, especially in 21st century due to resource crunch or climate change or whatever it is. But we need to have many improvements to do in our rice research. That is improve the land productivity, water productivity, labor productivity, capital, everything. And not only that, we have to reduce the vulnerability to pests and disease attack and also the climate change influences and reducing greenhouse gases, etc. And coming to our equip, I am from India, All India Coordinated Research Program for Rice Improvement. You may or may not know this is one of the largest research network for a single crop in the whole world. And this is the biggest network in Asian countries, South Asian countries for a single crop involving 45 funded centers and 110 voluntary centers and hundreds of scientists involved in this program. And every year we have a technical program about this, and we formulate the new program for the coming years. And this is finally to develop varieties. Main concentration of ICRIP is developing varieties, and in now right now in our whole country we have more than 1,000 varieties released at central level for rice alone. This is mainly the contribution of agricultural universities associated with Indian Council of Agricultural Research in the ICRI program. So you are also having in TNAU one ICRI program, not one, three, four centers we have in Adudurai, your PBS, and some other voluntary centers and all. They are also contributing the research as well as varieties to the country program in the national level. So why I have taken this slide is just Sangotri has finished her Viva. She completed her work in aerobic rice, but she could not get the differentiation between different systems of rice cultivation. That's why I have taken this slide. Actually, the in the traditional system, even 2 to 3 decades back, we had only the transplanted rice systems. I think if you all remember, even in your childhood days, rice means in the flooded water. But now the situation has changed 2 to 3 decades onwards. The water scarcity, labor scarcity, many other issues, climate, everything are changed, and farmers voluntarily are forced to shift to the different possible systems of cultivation, not transplanted rice. If they have water, obviously they go for transplanted rice. But even resource crunch is there, and also climate change, erratic rainfall seasons. You might have experienced recently also unseasonal floods and rains. That is not common in November, December, even in Tamil Nadu or AP or most of the parts of country. Not only country, we can say in the world also. That erratic rainfalls and unexpected changes in the climate, which are forcing. Actually, if it is season bound means if rainfall is fixed, then your season goes very smooth, and you need not think about any other system of cultivation at all. Only transplanted irrigated rice you will go. But the situations are changed, and now farmers are doing the practice of direct seeding in different systems. I have mentioned no here directed dry seeding, and again in wet seeded again two systems, aerobic, anaerobic, and again in wet seeded again aerobic is there. And you can see the seeding patterns in these systems, and the oxygen level availability also we have given here. You can see Sangotri in your aerobic system where it fits, you see with what oxygen level, all that also matters for your organic manures composition and release of nutrients to your succeeding crop and all. Okay, so again if we go to direct seeding, okay, this is all our earlier I discussed. No, majority of our Indian rice growing area is covered by irrigated system, irrigated and rain fed lowland. But again, now the system has changed. This was the earlier situation, just I have mentioned. And one more peculiarity of rice is it goes 2000 meters above mean sea level in hills of Kashmir, and also it is grown below mean sea level in Kanyakumari, Kuttanadu, Kerala. Part of Kerala is Kuttanadu. Anyone knows? Monkampu, that belt, Kuttanad area, it is below mean sea level. There also rice is successfully grown, and in above 2000 meters also successfully grown, and in all places it is staple food. So what you are able to grasp from this, rice is stubborn and adaptable to any environment, but still it has some drawbacks. Resource use efficiency is good, but still, if resources are not available, like water mainly, energy, nutrients, if they are not sufficiently available, we have to manipulate and we have to shift the system or change the cultivation practices, or we have to develop new varieties which can sustain and come up well with very low nutrients and very sturdy conditions like that. So we, our priority is mainly on varieties. So coming to production technology, particularly to rice, different aspects of production technology are there, their contribution to the yield or productivity. So in that thing, if you see, weed management has considerable contribution. Though it is not direct, weeds are not doing anything directly, losses or anything, it's not appearing directly. Weed harm or weed interference will not be seen directly like diseases. But still it is causing, you see, plant protection means it is including insects and diseases. That is causing only 3.4% contribution to the productivity. But weeds are causing 15.2% contribution. That is very considerable, and it is increasing weed problem and contribution. So we should concentrate more on the weed problems and management. And the losses also, like diseases, insects and all. Generally, what is our notion? What we see in the fields, we see pests and diseases are more, insects and diseases. Weeds, we don't think or we don't feel that it is more. But actually, the losses, yield loss caused by different components of stresses, both biotic and abiotic. When we consider biotic stresses alone, the weeds contribute for 37%. Weeds cause 37% component of yield loss compared to diseases, insects, or nematodes, whatever it is. And this is all just to brush up your weed management courses, because you may not be remembering your UG or PG courses of weed management. Just I want to brush you. That's why about all this I'm giving. Coming to rice alone, we have almost 150 genera of weeds belonging to 350 species and 60 plant families. And for convenience of weed management or control, we group into three groups. So many categories are there based on life cycle, based on infestation, like that. But in general, in view of farmers or in view of control measures, we make into three groups: grasses, sedges, and broadleaf weeds. This much is enough to manage weeds in the crop fields. So again, if you see grasses, grasses and our rice also belong to Poaceae family, but altogether 80 species of grasses are there in rice alone, and sedges are 50 species, and broadleaf weeds are many and belong to different families. So we now mainly concentrate on grasses and sedges control. Broadleaf weeds come in later part of the crop season. And again, apart from this voracious number of weeds, they are also host the insects and diseases and act as alternate hosts for most of the rice insects and rice diseases. And again, as you know, the weeds are stronger than rice crop, and why? Because they have a C4 pathway. Most of the rice weeds are belonging to C4 weeds. And you can see here C3 croplands, all cereal crops, our rice, wheat, barley, oats, etc. are all C3, except maize, sorghum, sugarcane. These are C4, and we don't have much compared to our cereal crops in these C4 crop plants. That is also one reason why all cereals have more weed problems. Both are belonging to the C3 family, C3 pathway. But majority of the rice weeds are having C4 pathway, and they are dominating and having inherent capacity to extract, utilize, and disseminate their seed or their generations. And these are some of the weed infested fields. Have you come across this type of fields? Anytime have you seen these weeds in rice fields? Have you seen any one of you? No. Clean fields you have seen? Huh? You have seen or not? This type of weeds you have seen. Majority are grassy weeds only. And these are causing major issue if we are not able to control in the critical period. And these are some of the typical dry, not aerobic or like what she did, no. Under saturated condition type of irrigation, these weeds will not come. But this is all rain-fed uplands of northeastern India. Rain-fed upland totally depends on the rainfall. But in northeast India, rainfall is little higher, and throughout the season they meet the water requirement through rainfall only, and they go for rain-fed lowland rice. Rain-fed lowland and rain-fed upland. Both rices are common there. But in our South India, we go for direct seeded rice. But I told you, no, semi-dry rice, Sangotri, semi-dry rice. In most of our South Indian states, they go for dry seeding in dry fields, but later they convert into uh, flooded system when they get some canal water or tank water released to their areas. So that is semi-dry rice. And aerobic rice is totally under saturation. It will never be under flooded condition. Aerobic rice. That all depends on the definition and usage. According to our convenience, we modify even Sri system of cultivation also like that only. And coming to the recently emerging problems, now DSR is the upcoming field, and transplanted rice will further reduce, and maybe in a decade or so, almost 50% of our area may go for semi-dry rice because of the climatic conditions. So now itself the problem started. I think any one of you, if you have any interaction with the department or farmers fields, they will be complaining about weedy rice and leptoclova in these dry and semi-dry rice systems. And especially in Kerala part, this weedy rice is a major issue. Weedy rice, because they are going for more area under direct seeding. And this weedy rice is already became major issue, and they have developed some technologies also. And further, we have to change our regular management practices. And coming to the so when to control the weeds or when to manage the weeds throughout the season or some part of the season or which part of the season? Any one of you can tell? Weed control for not only rice, for any crop, when do you go for weed control? MSc, you might have had no courses, no? PhD, MSc, no. You don't have. Critical period of competition. Only when we have critical period of weed competition, weed control in that period only you can control the weeds. Of weed competition, like threshold level for insects and diseases, we have critical period of weed competition. When we control the weeds during the critical period of weed competition, we need not bother about this. Without any significant reduction in the yield, we can get good benefit with control in the critical period of weed competition. This is the period where weeds have to be controlled. Beyond that critical period, even if weeds exist, there won't be any competition or harm to the rice crop. So generally what we say is in rice crop, generally for transplanted rice, it is up to 1 month. Up to 1 month is the period just after transplanting up to 1 month. But for direct seeded rice and aerobic rice and all, that is different. Here I just want to show the competition, weed competitive ability. So here you have seen, no? This is the weed plant and this is the rice plant, how robust and dominantly it takes space, air, nutrients, light, everything. And also you see here, can you see any crop here? Rice crop, which is dominant here. What are all seen here? What is the plant seen here? Rice or weeds or which weeds? Broadleaf weeds or some grasses or something you spell out. Broadleaf weeds. See the state of rice crop here. Direct sown and left it initially. And the weeds dominated. And how we measure this weed competitive ability is through two indices. That is ability to withstand the competition and also competitive index based on the weed biomass and weed population, weed biomass and also the yield. Yield means again here weedy platka, it comes total as including panicles, everything like crop. So these direct seeded systems, as I told, the drivers are energy, labor shortage, water shortage, all these things. And coming to the recent years, now Punjab is having the maximum area. 20% of area is under DSR. And in general, in our whole country, in the recent, this is the recent estimate, in 40 acres of rice area, 10% is under DSR, which was not earlier under DSR. So that means the DSR area is increasing. Farmers are going for DSR in a fast way and approaching almost, that's what I told, no, after a decade you may expect more than 50% of area under DSR, either wet DSR or dry DSR or semi dry rice, whatever it is. Transplanting won't be that much in the coming future because of all the shortages and resource crunches. And again, most of our states, you see, all southern states are there increasing, including Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and some parts of Madhya. These are all now moving towards the DSR cultivation. And coming to, I have explained the situation of DSR and transplanted to you the current status. And coming to our findings and research efforts at IIRR, Indian Institute of Rice Research, recognized for development of varieties at national level for many biotic and abiotic stresses, as well as nowadays for high zinc and high iron also. And these are all under IRIN, International Rice Research Institute Network Program, and most of the IIRR were developed and released varieties, though not very popular in our country and our states, they are all in popular in other countries. Other Southeast Asian countries, most of our varieties are very popular, including different biofortified varieties, biotic stress varieties, abiotic stress varieties, all that. And in our since 4 5 years, our objective is little diverted towards weed competitiveness. Why? Because the DSR is coming, and DSR we have many varieties released, including our institute also. I think all of you you also know her variety Co53 is also a DSR variety, aerobic variety. And we have also plenty of aerobic varieties, but weed competitive varieties we don't have. And in our country, hardly we have recently herbicide tolerant varieties also. Two varieties are released by IRI in 2022. Till that time, no herbicide tolerant variety or no weed competitive variety in our country related to rice. So our efforts are mostly towards the development of weed competitive varieties. So the main objectives mainly for DSR and weed competitive traits, and this is all most of the part is genetic part because we work as a team and we are also part of the variety development programs, and we play major role as agronomists in traits for weed competition, analyzing, identifying and measuring of all the weed competitive traits is by agronomists, and breeders go for only for breeding program and developing the populations of different generations, and developing the segregating population and stable population and final release of variety. So we are part of and main backbone of that breeding program of weed competitive varieties. So just I am seeing this, showing this to you. And in this program, no more than 2,000 rice genotypes consisting of different genetic stocks and all wild rice varieties. Most of the weed competitive traits are seen in the genetic components are seen in the wild rice relatives. Wild rice is base material and parent of our cultivated rice. But wild rice has so many weed competitive traits, but it has its disadvantages like low yield, low tillering, low biomass production like that. So later part, the new varieties, high yielding varieties developed were responding to nutrients and giving high yields. But these traits are needed now. Once ignored were required now for weed competitiveness. That's why we have taken all these varieties, wild rices, and also international upland observational nursery, and also from the state universities, and mainly for the different traits. I think you have seen this early uniform germination, early seedling vigor, and weed competitiveness. And why I am showing this DSR things and stressing DSR is the weed competitive ability is directly linked to the direct seeded rice traits. If the traits which are suitable for direct seeded rice are good, they are definitely weed competitive and they help in the weed suppression and weed management in the DSR systems. That's why now our focus is mainly the varieties development for DSR first priority, and next is weed compatibility. And this, I think, even I also cannot follow much this QTLs, we say qualitative trait loci. These are identified in for each trait. They identify this qualitative trait loci in particular parents and materials, and finally they aggregate and they use that material for breeding programs. And you can see for all these different traits like herbicide tolerance, weed competitiveness, early uniform emergence, early vigor related traits, and biotic stress tolerance, lodging, all these now QTLs are identified and developed by the breeders based on these 2000 germplasms. So that material and that QTLs will be used in the further breeding programs for development of weed competitive varieties. This is the third year of our program, and in 2025 we will be able to release the weed competitive varieties, maybe first time in our country, because our team is leading with all multinational collaboration breeding program. And this I told no already, these traits which are all different traits and methodology I have already explained to you. These are all the related components which we record agronomy people. And based on all this only recommendation to the breeders, and we give the material names and lines information to the breeders which for the development of that loci. So this and all different uh, response varieties and genotypes, all this is all our agronomy part. That's why I have just shown. We need not go for elaborative. Again, one more thing I want to highlight: the weed competitive traits even in the world also, QTLs are reported only for some. that is weed competitive traits, that is based on the early uniform emergence and early seedling vigor, and these are reported by two authors, and two people only reported the QTLs, and weed suppressive ability and weed competitive ability are yet to be reported. It's not available in our country, not only in anywhere for that matter. So in that line also we are all doing the research, and maybe in future we get more information. You can see one more thing in insects and diseases screening or tolerance. If we develop a insect tolerant variety in rice, suppose stem borer tolerant rice, so you can have lot of literature and lot of breeding support, breeding QTLs, whatnot, all will be available. For diseases also, it is plenty of things are available. But weeds, if you come, hardly you can see. You see, weed suppressive ability, it is not yet reported. Wheat tolerance competition may be in rice. I am talking about rice, and these are not yet reported. So now only in this decade, particularly in these 5 6 years, in our country, most of the research in rice is concentrated towards weed competitiveness. And finally, the for 3 years we made efforts continuously, means 6 seasons. After that, we came to a conclusion that these materials are superior for particular traits like early seedling vigor and plant type with higher yield and stay green character. Like this, we agronomists made some characters finalized statistically acceptable lines, and these lines we are passing on to the breeding people, and they are using further in this development of variety. And again, this is also another thing for weed competitiveness only. This is mainly concentrating on the Varaiza glaberrima. It is another wild rice. That is the base parent using the IR64 and one more Sabita. This is another program. And but the objective is same, weed competitive variety development. This is with different background. And these are all we did with you see the early seedling vigor having so many components. You can see early seedling vigor, how we assess is very difficult with that 2000 accessions using that paper roll test and all that to repeatedly, not one time. To get the consistency in the results, we have to repeat, and this many observations we have to take each time. And based on these observations and again statistical analysis, we'll come out with that lines. I have shown earlier one slide, no? One handful of lines with promising traits. So these are all different, these glaberrima lines, which I have shown in the earlier slide, no? The findings. And that we have again evaluated in the field. This you can see. So these are all again, this is again actually the molecular mapping also they have done, and based on that only that QTL hotspots they made. So far, this is the final result, identified 9 QTLs for the weed competitiveness. That's why I'm telling 25 we may be able to release a weed competitive variety. And this and all I will say similarly for root system, this is another set, and these are all genotypes. And this some of the okay, so these some of the varieties with national importance and popular growing conditions we have selected and used multi-locational testing for weed competitiveness. And you can see the hybrids if we grow compared to high yielding varieties, they are more weed competitive and recorded less weed biomass and less yield losses. And again, the short duration varieties of rice, when we grow, they record more weed problems, more weed biomass. Our traditional medium duration and long duration varieties are comparatively more weed competitive. Short duration varieties are more prone to weed problems and weed losses. And coming to herbicide tolerance again, this is another component. We concentrated so far on non-genetically modified crop variety development for competing weeds. And this is another part. Whatever herbicides are available now, farmers are using, if we continuously use for more than a decade, definitely weeds will develop herbicide resistance. And wheat already, 2, 3 weeds have reported herbicide resistance. But rice, it is not that much. But here and there now reports are coming for herbicide resistance. That means weeds are not controlled with the already approved and recommended herbicides. So then what to do? We have to go for tolerant cultivars. So that is another aspect of breeding, herbicide tolerance. So in that again, using different mutations or some other chemicals, we develop the tolerance and we induce the tolerance in the varieties. So that is herbicide tolerance. Already I think Robin, one Robin mutant is there. From PBS it is derived. Dr. Robin, he is no more. But Dr. Robin has developed a variety mutant based on the mutagenesis of rice using N22, one Nagina 22, one rice parent is there. Based on that, he developed a mutant which is tolerant to Imageta pyre, a herbicide pulses and soybean. But that if we use for rice in general, rice will die. It will kill the rice crop. It is a pulse herbicide. But this mutant is tolerant to imazethapyr. It is little cheaper and it will control most of the weeds. And this background they used, and IRI people have developed basmati varieties, two herbicide tolerant varieties. You can see here basmati 1979 and 1985. These are released and available now. And these, when they grow, these two basmati varieties, when they grow, they can use that imazethapyr for weed control in these varieties. But if that imazethapyr cannot be used on other varieties, so these varieties are developed only for tolerance to imazethapyr. Like that, for other herbicides like glyphosate, it is a non-selective herbicide. In United States of America, 2 decades back, they developed all clear variety. That means it is selective to glyphosate and it sustains glyphosate injury and it gives normal yield. But all other weeds will be controlled in the particular field. But in our country, glyphosate is banned. In most of the states, it is banned herbicide due to some carcinogenic effects and all. Some people went to court and also it is banned in some of the states. So we cannot go for glyphosate tolerance. So only we can go for other herbicide tolerances. And these are some of the mutants and which are imparting the herbicide tolerance in rice. You can see like gamma rays, EMS, sodium azide. Some chemicals are there. Some again magnetic stimulation also will be there, and different modes of mutations they do. And some of the herbicides. These are the herbicides they are using now for tolerance, and you can see the references also. Some of the initiated the references, and now the work is still going on. But herbicide tolerant rice, it takes sometime. We can't say how much time it takes for particular herbicides. And again, in our ECRIP multi-location program also, we have herbicide tolerant trials with different herbicides and tolerant genotypes. And coming to again climate change, this climate change is will be causing the increase in carbon dioxide, increase in temperature, increase in ozone, all that things. In that things, generally the weed growth will be increased with increase in CO2 concentration, but crop growth will not be increased in the same proportion. And also you can see the most of the rice weeds, these are all grasses, dactylactinium, echinoclova and all. These will respond positively to the increase in carbon dioxide. In coming future, the carbon dioxide will be increased and temperature also will be increased. So we have to see which weeds are more positive and that will cause a more problem. And most of the work so far related to mutagenesis or breeding or molecular mapping, all these with DNA based technologies and gene based modeling, all these. We are concentrating mostly on the breeding program of the final outputs by 2025. All these are the future outputs of the breeding program for a genetic dissection, identifying the traits, and finally is related breeding varieties for weed competitiveness and herbicide tolerance. So I am leaving that part there because that is the current and main part of recent research, weed competition and herbicide tolerance. Coming to our general weed management practices in rice. General approach is physical. That is almost 50% contribution to the weed control in general. And the ecological approach is indirect approach, but it is only contributing to 10%. And chemical approach is it is almost direct approach and major contribution, and it is 35%, and it will be increasing further and by reducing the physical approach contribution. And again, you can see no single method. We go for single methods only, even though methods are available and very easy to adopt. We don't go. Generally, easy to take is herbicide. Generally, nowadays, farmers also go for other methods. They don't go cultural methods or ecological methods and all. Only chemical methods. Preventive measures, we all of us know, even in our basic courses, we studied also. But most of the times, we also don't recommend, farmers also don't follow. But this is the must to follow in the coming years and due to the changing weed problems. And here I want to emphasize is plant quarantine. How many of you know that there is a quarantine for plant and especially for weeds? There is a law for plant quarantine and for weeds especially. There is a law in 2003. It was introduced in our country with regulation of import into the country, and there is a order and clause also is there, and under that 31 weed species are identified as quarantine 31 weed species for our agriculture, mainly for field crops, and no consignment with any of the weed seeds is allowed into the. But how you can allow unless we are trained and qualified to identify particular weed? No one can tell, no. If even though quarantine is there, implementation is a problem because trained professionals are not there for weed identification. So that is another issue. Actually, the botanists and taxonomists are some of the people who are appointed for this purpose in the mainly on the ports and airports. So now only in since 2 3 years it is a serious issue and they are implementing this for avoid quarantine weeds. And these are some of the weeds you can see a big list 31 weeds are there. Few are rice weeds also, and these are all some of the grasses, sedges, broadleaf weeds. These are all in alphabetical order. We have given the 31 weed species which have to be quarantined when entered into the country, or when if it is entered also it should be avoided or devitalized. Mm. For that, we have to follow some of the phytosanitary regulations very strictly. And these are followed now in the airports and in the seaports also. In the recent years, not in the earlier years. And coming to the cultural methods also, stale seedbed we know, but it was not adopted by any of the farmers. But recently it became a crop rotation. Similarly, I will show this stale seedbed technique. Stale seedbed technique we studied in the courses, but it was not implemented in earlier years. Recent years, recent 4 5 years, when direct seeded rice is increasing, direct seeded rice is adopted. The weed problem is very much on the initial stage. And weedy rice, I showed no weedy rice is nothing but one species of hybrid from the cultivated rice. So it is very difficult to control. What happens if we apply herbicide to weedy rice? Will it control? Rice herbicide, if we apply to weedy rice, or VD rice field in the crop field, what will happen? Will it control or control? We won't control. You understood or not? Rice has VD rice is in the field. I told the VD rice problem. I told about rice herbicides. They are very specific. When we apply rice herbicide to a field with VD rice, what will happen? Huh? Which one will be controlled or not controlled? It spell out. Someone sleeping? Huh? Rice herbicide will kill the VD rice or not? Hmm? No? Then how will you control? For weed control, rice herbicides are developed and released, available, and we recommend to farmers. Suppose if farmer has more weedy rice, how what control we can tell? How you will control? So chemical part is not working now. So we have to go for other options like cultural methods. Cultural is stale seedbed technique. This we studied in UG or PG in some basic course. In theory, that we have to implement now, and farmers are implementing, and especially in Kerala in large area DSR they are adopting, and this tail seedbed technique is very successfully implemented by them. This is very simple. In fallow period they do the land preparation, weeds will allow germinate, no, when once field is plowed, when little moisture is there, weeds will germinate or not? Hmm? You have not seen. When field is plowed and having little moisture, what will come up? Hmm? That weeds most of the time this weedy rice only will come in that areas. So they go for non-selective herbicide, glyphosate, example, and paraquat. Some of the non-selective means it kills whole vegetation. But they kill and they wait for 10 days to 15 days, then for normal rice sowing. So that will control the weedy rice. This is one method which is available and old method, but now farmers are implementing. Even in wet seeded rice also I showed, no, VD rice. Most of the times this VD rice is having awns, and the panicles will come to maturity earlier than our rice varieties, and it is taller than rice varieties, and easily shatters. And if the seed goes into the soil as seed bank, it will stay for some years, even more than 20 years. Whenever conditions are congenial, it will germinate, and again the VD rice will come. So such is the problem with VD rice. So we have to go for other options also. So this is the field with VD rice. You can see the shattering and germination, all these awns you can see here, no? These are on VD rice, and it shatters like anything. And these are some of the stale seed bed technique results. This you don't need. And this is again wet seeded rice. Dry seeded rice, wet seeded rice, in both rices. VD rice is a problem. And here also you can use, here moisture will be more. In dry seeded rice there won't be much moisture. Even in wet seeded rice you can go for any herbicide, and even the uh, Kerala Agriculture University has got a patent also for a implement, what to say, the sprayer, wick applicator. I will show this. This This is the wick applicator. It can be used in the field, standing field. It will just here it is showing, no, this man. This is the wick applicator having the herbicide in this point, and when he is moving in the field, the VD rice is taller than normal rice and panicles earlier than normal rice. So that wherever the panicles are there, he is going and touching that wick applicator to the panicles. So it will kill the panicles of VD rice. This is the instrument developed by KAU and they got a patent and commercialized also. If we want, we can also purchase and use it when VD rice problem is more. This VD rice problem is getting more in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Kerala, part of Karnataka. Now in AP also it started. I don't know about Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu. It is there? No. It is increasing actually. Few states it is pockets it is there, but now it is increasing. And this solarization is another technique which also is known for old time. We are not using, but this solarization is also very simple these days. Farmer almost all the farmers have these polythene sheets and drip irrigation units with them. So in summer, if they do deep ploughing and use that polythene sheet on the just spreading the polythene sheet, because of high summer temperatures inside also it will be higher than outside temperature and it will kill the annual grass weeds and also nematodes. And annual, most of the annual grass weeds will be controlled by this solarization. I can show here, you see, this just we have seen it randomly. After removing the polythene sheet, after 15 days only, we kept in the summer, peak summer in May. In May season, we just applied that black polythene sheet on the field and left it. After 15 days, you can see the annual grasses, which when we cover the plastic sheet, no, little moisture, whatever is there, the humidity, because of that, whatever annual grasses always will be on the surface, top 5 centimeters. So that grass weeds germinate, and after 1 week to 10 days, it won't get sufficient water or nutrients, anything, so it will be killed. And high temperature that will desiccate the weeds actually. And this is but of course for rice in small areas we can follow this, but large areas it is not adaptable, but still it is a very useful practice apart from herbicides. And coming to seed invigoration, this is also part of cultural methods, and this is also non-chemical method. This is actually the enhancing the seed capacity to stimulate the germination and other and the physiological performance to increase the early seedling vigor. This is also very simple and hydropriming. That is very, very simple and which we were for decades we were all no researcher was interested. It is just soaking in water and into some temperature, little drying for 2 to 3 hours, soaking 2 to 3 hours drying, again bringing back to drying to original moisture content. Means when we dry the seed, it will be having 14% moisture. So we soak the seed for 3 4 hours. Then again we re-dry till 14% moisture is achieved. That is hydropriming. It is very simple technique. Farmers also can adopt. This also will increase the early seedling vigor so that in all direct seeding systems only these are useful, not for transplanted. No need for transplanted systems actually. For dry or wet direct seeding, you go for seeding, no, directly dry seed you will be sowing. So if you go for seed priming and do it, it will hasten the germination and initial seedling vigor also. 1 to 3 days early germination also will be observed. So again coming to mechanical methods, Sri system of rice intensification. Have you heard or seen one method of rice cultivation? Have you heard? System of rice intensification. 1 decade back, it was very popular in Tamil Nadu also, and government was giving subsidies to go for system of rice intensification. You know, some of you know. Huh? This system has failed. Why? Because of the drudgery involved. Because it needs skill and talent for lifting the seedlings, very young seedlings, 6 to 8 days seedlings, and again planting in a square system, and again rotary weeder running 4 to 5 times we have to weed in the field. No chemicals will be used in this system. So It is very finally it is very drudgery intensive, and farmers 2 seasons, 3 seasons they adopted, and after that they left it. Even though yields are very higher, so what we see from this, farmers adopt only easy technologies, immediate benefit and easily implementable technologies, not drudgery intensive technologies and all. Nowadays, no farmer is interested. Just because of that reasons only, system of rice intensification come up. 1 decade back, it was in a spring actually. In that force only, if it is implemented, whole country could have been with more than 70% with system of rice intensification. But it is no more now. Only in experiments and research things only it is there. No farmer is doing. Why? Because the drudgery involved. So what we have to do is, here the mechanical weeder is the main issue. So we have to go for some development in this mechanical weeders. So if we go for motorization and cheaper availability, motorized people have developed, but the cost of the motorized weeder is more than 20,000, something like that. So the small farmer cannot purchase by 20, more than 20,000 by keeping one motorized weeder, and for that again fuel is needed. For normal vehicles itself, fuel people are feeling, and for again for weeder, nobody want to use fuel, no petrol. So it has also failed. So we have to see alternate, and we have to think machinery which can be used in the other mechanical methods. That's what I want to. And coming to chemical control, as I said, all these are all not already we discussed. These are all so many herbicides available in the market after testing and release in our country. And one more thing is, herbicides are also used in a nematode control. Nematodes is also a problem and raising problem in the DSR, not in transplanted rice. Transplanted rice, it is negligible, nematode problem. Now also rain-fed uplands of northeastern states and eastern states, if you go, nematode problem is very common. So for nematodes as such, there are some insecticides, but there also no much control, complete control. But accidentally we have noticed in our aerobic fields, the nematodes also were controlled with our rice herbicide and bispiribacterium sodium. This was actually tried in multi-locational trials also to confirm the findings. So finally, the bispiribacterium sodium and pendimethalin, which are promising herbicides for DSR, they are also effective on nematode control. So these are all some of the experimental studies at different levels: field, glasshouse level, field level, and multi-locational level. And coming to nanotechnology, now nano fertilizers, nano urea, DAP are coming, and some more are going on to encapsulate the herbicides also, and which can be used for season long weed control. Actually, our herbicides are having 2 to 3 weeks of residual effect on the, and it won't be season long. We are recommending two herbicides, pre-emergence, post-emergence, sometimes late post-emergence also for DSR. Some of the states in AP and all, they are using three herbicides in the DSR, no manual weed control, but 3 times they are using herbicides. So in that case, this nanotechnology will help, and these encapsulated formulations, if they applied in the initially, season-long control can be achieved. But these are all in the progress, and maybe in coming years it will come. And coming to scented rice, as I told, the pre-emergence, post-emergence herbicides can be effectively used at right dose, because no rice herbicides have long residual effect which will carry out to the grains. So the export is the main criteria for our basmati rice. So we have to go for, without any hesitation, we can go for herbicide application. And coming to organic rice, again it is very tricky. You cannot go for herbicides. If you go for organic certification, then you have to go for mulching or some other manures or mechanical weeders or star weeders, row weeders like that. So that aspects have to be concentrated for further improvement and development. And coming to biological control, some of the successful stories only I am telling. Animals like pigs in Tamil Nadu only. This is the study in the Tamil Nadu only. Cypress, sedge, cypress sedge. Cypress weed, what you call in Tamil? Huh? That is a major problem in some parts, and they have allowed the pigs to feed on the tubers. The tubers, cypress will be having a rotundus is having the tubers which will have a specific smell. So that smell attracts these pigs, and these when they allowed in the fallow period and immediately after puddling, they are successfully eating 2 3 years if they leave the fields with the pig herds. It is successfully reduced the population, it seems. Similarly, ducks and fish in our paddy fields. And this again is a ecrip farming system trial in Tamil Nadu, Villupuram, Kadalur, and Nagapattinam, where they had rice, fish, and poultry, and they recorded the major weeds, Marsilia and Leptoclova, and these were significantly reduced with these systems. And coming to allelopathy again, allelopathy is the chemicals which are released from the roots or plant residues. Even the rice has an allelopathic effect. Even the rice weeds have allelopathic effect. But the thing is, which is dominant and which is affecting to the significant level is the important thing. So, in one of the field experiment in aquatic weed, the Teicarnia, this was whether it can be controlled with allelopathic effect of rice. Some of the rice straw cultivars were taken, and the straw was made into extracts, and this was used for control of this Acarnia. And you can see some of the promising varieties in this again, BPT and Ponni. These are having these varieties ka straw. This particular BPT and Ponni variety straw is having more allelopathic effect, and it could control significantly the water hyacinth. And again, some moderately allopathic varieties are there. Again, ADT 36, CR 1009 and CO 43. These two are yours only, no? CO 43 and ADT 36. These are having moderate allelopathy. Means there are so many avenues for research, but we are not concentrating for weed control in all aspects. See, allelopathy we are not doing much in our country, but still our own rice crop and rice straw extract when we used it is controlling the major aquatic weed. So that is the potential of our rice for control of weeds. And coming to another experiment, it was done in our laboratory in last year. The botanicals, different botanicals, and lemongrass oil. This usually we use for in our houses also for what to say, for aroma and also for driving away the mosquitoes. Lemongrass oil is cheaper only. That we took in the different concentrations, and we have tested for echinoclova, which is the major rice weed, for germinations. And you can see the pictures also here. This is all control. You can see the down picture. Here you can see the different concentrations and this control. Even after repetitions also we could get that this we have to take it to further about some formulation to make it available for farmers also. If we spray field before sowing or seeding or wet seeding, it may control the major grass weed. That is the initial problem. No, echinoclova is the major problem in the first 15 20 days. So if we find further, we have done 3 times. the experiment. We have to take it to the field level again. Now it is in part level. Now I have shown this Petri plate level. Now it is in level. Next season we are taking it to field level. In our fields in dry seeding, we will try, and later in multi-locational, and then we can give as a recommendation as a cheaper one and non-chemical one. And insect bioagents, I told no rice insects again. This is rice swarming caterpillar. This one, when rice alone is there, it will eat rice. When other weeds, Celia and Echinoclova, if that weeds are there, it automatically feeds on that weeds, not on the rice. That we won't notice usually. But if after critical stage of weed competition, if weeds are there here and there, and if that particular rice swarming caterpillar is there, it will feed on the weeds, not on the rice. So after critical period, we need not worry about weeding all the clean field. We can leave if they are here and there weeds, they are not that much harmful and not competitive also. However, the rice insects will be diverted. And this is again one blue beetle. Blue beetle is also a pest of rice. But when this ammonia weed, you can see here, these are all coming after tillering stage to our rice fields, broadleaf weeds. But this will be controlled totally by this blue beetle. If this particular ammonia weed is there, blue beetle will not touch the rice. Even if it is halting on the rice plant, it will not eat the rice plant. That is already proven, and publications are also there. Only thing is we have to popularize. And this is again the same blue beetle you can see here. This is again another broadleaf weed, and this is paddy plants. You can see here it is still simply sitting on the paddy plant, but here you see the how it is voraciously feeding. So these are some of the rice insects which you can control the weeds and leave the rice otherwise. And again, this cypress nutsedge is controlled by this particular insects, borers and others. And I finally I will tell single method means only herbicide usage, only chemical control, only non-chemical control, only mechanical weeder. This type of things will be successful, but not complete success. They won't give. So a combination of different materials, right from selection of variety, competitive variety, and other non-monetary inputs like cultural methods, sanitary methods, and other methods you can combine for a effective weed control in DSR. Some of the success stories of our implementation in DSR. See, this I am telling. This farmer, this field is never grown for rice, and having lot of stones and all. Sometimes, if very comfortable climate is there, they were going. And that farmer is a progressive farmer. He has some sprinkler irrigation system got for subsidy. So he asked us and took one of our drought tolerant variety, DR variety, and he has gone the sowing for tractor sowing. That tractor and drill is for 8 gram. The spacing is 60 centimeters actually. You can see here the rows, very wide rows are there. He has gone like that with totally organic cultivation. He used this farmyard manure only, and he was using that Jivamrut, that cow dung and cow urine, all that they mix. No, that only he used, and with the sprinkler irrigation, he was using the irrigation weekly once or 10 days once like that. And he himself was using that rotary weeder. 5 to 6 times he did weeding, no herbicide was applied. But he has harvested 4.2 tons yield. And he is repeating that now. This is fifth year of his farm continuing the same variety DRR than 44 with sprinkler irrigation. His orchard is grown now, lemon orchard. So it is not much need for it. So he is using that system and units for this one with very minimum cost of cultivation, and exploiting the available technologies and resources and things. Again, coming to weed utility, weeds have a lot of utility apart from these things. So you can go for any utility like composting or making mulch for animals or pulp, paper, fiber. And moreover, some of the weeds are very efficient in removing the heavy metals. In phytoremediation, bioremediation, they use. Not in our country, of course, it is already implemented in many other countries. So we also can go in that line. We have plenty of weeds in aquatic weeds, especially in the canals and all that we can use effectively. See, compost and again degradation of heavy metals and treating the pollutant water and pollutant soil, all that things. So, and these are some of the conclusions. Development of weed competitive rice cultivars and herbicide tolerant varieties, and mainly the molecular technologies for this establishments are coming, and mechanized weeders are the main important thing now to further develop. If any one of you have some programs or PhD topics, you can use some of these ideas to frame and develop something.